Drake, expansion is something that is not going away, and very curious to see as it pertains to the Big 12 right now. You could get some potential things that relate to expansion that could lead to a whole lot more changes.
We're just not far away from the ACC suffering a similar fate to the Pac-12. And the reason that I wholeheartedly believe that is because of court documents that we've seen recently. And as I say court documents, that is the ACC's lawyers have presented this case against Florida State or trying to defend the grant of rights against what Florida State has claimed. And the one thing that I picked out of there is the admission a settlement is possible. There's a number that Florida State can pose here, or the ACC can agree on that creates a separation between those two. And in that, it sets a number for everybody else. If you say, hey, $150 million gets you out of the ACC, we'll settle with you. Once they do it with Florida State, they're going to have to do it with Clemson or Miami or UNC or Virginia, whoever. And so there's no way. Florida State, to me, could win this. They could win the case outright, almost walk out scot-free. They'll likely pay via settlement, but with that, NC State or Miami or Clemson, I mean, people, they'll say you're insane for believing that Clemson in the Big 12 is a possibility, but Clemson is being undervalued by conferences that aren't the Big 12. And the reason why is 15 years ago, we didn't talk about Clemson. We didn't know we didn't care about Clemson. They got the brand they have via winning. If Utah, the next 15 years, 10 years even, wins 2 national championships, they'll be what Clemson is today, right? That's what they won to create what they are, because no one cared. If the next 5 years of Clemson football are bad, no one's going to care again. They're just going to go away. They don't have the staying power like Florida State or Texas or Oklahoma. That being said, JT, if you're looking at a Clemson, that's the dream scenario, or even an NC State or Virginia Tech, a Pitt, a Louisville, those seem more reasonable. What do you do as a Utah fan, as a BYU fan, as a Colorado fan, as an Arizona? Like, what do you do as a team out west when we're talking such far eastward expansion in the Big 12?
I think to me, with the brands that you've mentioned, I get excited about that because I know as it pertains to Utah and winning, a win over Clemson is massive. A win over Miami would be incredible. All of those things, because beating major brands is really good for your own brand, because if you're proving that year that right now you're a better team and a better program. If you look at recent winning, Utah is a top 15 program over like the last 5 years in college football. Yeah. I don't think many people would give them the credit that they deserve for that, because they haven't played some of the Clemsons and that. And yes, they've played some good Pac-12 teams. They've beaten them. They've won the conference in some decent years, I might even add as well, where there were some good teams and they've still beaten it. But because people didn't care as much about the Pac-12, those wins didn't matter as much. But what if you're beating up on Miami and everyone's like, getting outraged because Miami's losing to Utah? And it's right. That's right. Miami's losing to Utah because Utah's been a better program than Miami. And this is where we remind you, this is exactly what happened with Florida a couple of years ago when Utah took on Florida. Florida beat Utah. Utah lost in the final play of the game in Gainesville. And everyone was like, SEC this, SEC that. Well, it's really hard to do a cross-country road game. Just ask the Gators how it worked out when they went up to Salt Lake City this last fall. It did not go very well for them. And that's what these kind of environments would be able to showcase. It's like, our team's Clemson, like traveling out to Utah. That'd be a really hard game for them. Be a tough game for Utah to go and play at Death Valley too. All of these new brands, new rivalries, everything like that. Conference realignment is already underway. It's time to embrace it. And I think adding brands that big would only boost Utah and the Big 12 in that instance.
Yeah, I think you not only embrace it, you get out of the front of it. And Brett Yormark's going to do that. He has shown that he wants to be. Yep, 100%. He is not going to sit by. And the George Kliavkoff quote of, we haven't decided if we're going to go shopping there yet. And now he's separated with the Pac-12, and they didn't obviously pick up any Big 12 teams. Instead, the opposite happened. My whole thing is, Brett Yormark will do the exact same with the ACC when that day comes, when all it takes is 4 teams leaving that conference, 4 teams for their TV deal to be reworked. And at that point, things really, really go haywire. And I'm not so positive that a Clemson, a Miami, even an NC State, as we've heard, will have to have a landing spot set in stone for them to leave. You'll hear other analysts say, they have to know where they're going to go for them to do it. No, I think these teams are going to show, hey, we have the money to do it. We have the cojones to do it. We will leave the ACC and search elsewhere, even if it's not the SEC and the Big Ten. And to me, that leads straight to the Big 12. This conference, it blows my mind, JT. It blows my mind. As somebody who's covered this league for 5 years, this conference went from, Texas and OU are leaving, it will die, to, what if Clemson is a brand that gets left behind by the SEC and Big Ten and falls to the Big 12, much to the benefit of this conference?
It would be so, just speaking out loud, it would be insane if the SEC and the Big Ten had the chance to add Clemson and they passed on it. But the way people were talking about Dabo Swinney when the Alabama job popped up, I'm like, my gosh, I didn't know it was this possible to disrespect someone who's won 2 national championships. Why is Brian Kelly getting more love than Dabo Swinney? Like, when some of these things, I know it's about we live in a world of what have you done for me lately. Hence why you brought up George Kliavkoff at one point, thinking he was going to be able to go shopping. At some point, he can't even get into the dang store to go shopping at this point anymore. His access has been denied, revoked. He was shown the boot in the door. So it's amazing how quickly things can change in the college athletics world. Utah and the Big 12 would not be smart, as we said, not to welcome Clemson. I absolutely think they're going to. And one thing's for sure, Drake, the realignment madness, all of this in college football is not slowing down anytime soon. So make sure you guys stay with Locked On Big 12. Drake doing a great job breaking it down. As always fun doing these with you, Drake.
Oh, dude, I love it. I think having the perspective of someone who follows a school, who covers a school, is good, because this directly is, as much as it sounds like it's going to sound like a doomsday, doom and gloom. And, there's no way this ever happens. Well, we're seeing it unfold. And to others, it's, will this ever affect me? Like, maybe it happens. Will it affect me? I mean, look, if you love a school, which you're all here because you do, it is going to impact you in a way that's much larger than many of us actually think. And key example, Utah playing TCU in a conference game. Again, by the way, Utah playing Kansas State in a conference game. That is how it impacts you. And in 2 years, we'll be saying, oh, wow, Kansas and Clemson, that's a conference. Those conversations will be had again. That's not going to go away. And JT, so glad I could come on the show, give the holistic perspective and get the perspective of you who has the more detailed school-oriented view.
Appreciate it, Drake. Always fun doing these, and it's always fun interacting with all of you, our listeners, each and every week. That is going to do it for our shows this week, but we can't wait to be back with you next week, talking all things Utah and Big 12. We look forward to seeing you then. Have a great weekend, everyone.